Hi, so in this video I'm going to go through how to install WordPress manually on Windows Server. And I've seen a lot of videos out there that show you how to do it via the web platform installer. So normally what they would recommend is you go into IIS Manager and you'll have this web platform installer. And you'll go in there and you search for WordPress. And you simply choose it here, click Add and click Install. Now the problem with that is it does everything behind the scenes for you, installing WordPress, setting up IIS, even installing MySQL and the PHP plugin. And the problem with that is sometimes when you want to move, after a year or so when you're using the website and it's time to port it over to another machine or even to a development machine, you might not know how to do that. You might not know how to configure each component. So I sort of don't exactly like that method of pressing a magic button and having it do all the work for you and not knowing what goes on behind the scenes. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to do each thing step by step. And hopefully you'll gain more insight into exactly how WordPress installs on the Windows server. So let's get started here. First thing is if you do want to go this route and you don't have the web platform installer, I have the links here, and I'll be putting this in the description section of the video, so hopefully that'll help most people out in finding the software. So the first thing I'm going to do is download the software. So I've gone to each one of these sites. This is the web platform installer. So you can go to this site and click download. Now I'm going to go through the MySQL download because it's not exactly very straightforward. So if you go to the MySQL downloads and click here, the download from Oracle eDelivery, you'll need a username and password, so register if you're prompted. If you already have one, just sign in. Now it's a little bit trickier since Oracle bought MySQL. So what you're going to find is you're going to be forwarded to a page like this. Prior to this, you're going to be forwarded to the login or to create a new login. But after you create a new login, you're going to be forwarded to a page like this. Just click yes, yes for both things. And after you do that, you're going to be forwarded to things to download, and just choose the MySQL Database and choose Windows 64 platform or 32. Likely it's 64 these days. And when you hit go, you're going to get a whole list of miscellaneous things here. Now these are individual components. I would recommend just downloading this first download, because this first download actually includes all of these other items here. So download this first, and for the WordPress files, go to this link that I have here and simply download the zip file for here. And for the PHP, same thing, click install PHP now. And this install PHP actually does use the web platform installer. So I'm cheating a little bit here with the PHP install, but because it comes on the IIS.net site, it's fairly safe that this will be here in the long run, and it's actually integrated into kind of configuring IIS. So because it does download the rewrite module and all of that for you. So I've actually have everything downloaded here. So let me just install this and go through, and you'll see this does use the web platform installer, and it downloads everything here. So let me just go to the folder where I have everything downloaded already. So I have the MySQL downloaded here, the WordPress downloaded here, and the PHP downloaded here. all from these sites, and again I'll have this in the description section for you to cut and paste. So let me install the PHP first. So simply double click and make sure you do have the web platform installer installed, which is this first link here. And I'm just going to click install here. It looks like I already have it installed, so I'll skip this step here. There's really nothing to install. So, but if you don't have it installed, go through the steps to install it. I was hoping to show you that step, but I think this is fairly straightforward in the install for the PHP. You just click install and then next, 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 and then complete. So that's the PHP portion. Now after that is done installing, if you go into control panel here, I did want to show you one thing here is if I go back into the web platform installer to show you the version that was installed, you'll notice it's 5.3, and that was the link here, was the 5.3 link. However, if I go back to my web installer platform, you'll see it's 5.3.28, and if I look at what's available here by typing in PHP, you'll notice there's actually a 5.4, 0.24, and a 5.511. So sometimes if you want a more recent version, you might want to click add, in which case you want to install that version instead of the older version. But I'm going to skip that step for now and move forward, going to the MySQL. So I'm going to go to MySQL here and install MySQL. And here I'm going to choose to simply install everything, especially the workbench. And if you've worked with SQL Server, the workbench is sort of like SQL Management Studio that allows you to connect to the databases and actually view the database objects. So that's very important to install, because that's how, as a layman to MySQL, coming from a SQL Server background, you might want to kind of relate the things you know from SQL Server to the things you don't in MySQL, and that's kind of a little bit of what corresponds is this workbench here corresponds to that MySQL. Corresponds to the SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio. So here the installation comes up, and I'm going to say install MySQL products. So I clicked on that. I'm going to accept this license. Check for updates. When you prompt for updates, since I downloaded the most current one just now, I'm not going to prompt for updates. If you do click on updates, sometimes it has some error because when you put in your Oracle account, it doesn't authenticate. So I'm going to skip that step. And I'm going to say the full. Alright, I'm just going to go custom actually here, and you'll see I'm just going to choose everything, namely to make sure that the backup is installed. And I could uncheck these particular ones that I'm not using, but looks like I have everything I want to use here or might want to use in the future. So I left everything as default. I didn't change anything. I just wanted to double check that the workbench was checked here, which it is. So I'm just going to click next. Now the problem is if you choose something else, it might try to actually download those products, and the download might fail because of the authentication. So that's the tricky part about MySQL now after it got bought by Oracle, is the installation is not as smooth as it used to be. So I simply click next, and now it's just going to install everything. So I'm just going to wait for it to install. Now it's done installing. It took about less than 5 minutes, probably about 2 minutes to install. So I'm just going to click next here, and it's going to configure the MySQL. So I'm going to click next, and I'm just going to leave everything as the default. This is a development machine, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Or I could choose the server machine if that's what you're using it for. But for me, I'm just going to leave it. It seems like the only difference was the memory configuration. I'm going to prompt it to put a firewall entry in there for the port. And I'm going to create a root password here. So the user is going to be root. I'm just going to create a simple password here. Password 123, password 123. And the Windows service name is going to be MySQL 5.6. So I left everything as the default, and it's going to configure. And now I'm just going to click next to configure the samples. And now everything looks like it's done, and the SQL Workbench is going to be prompted to come up. So this is the SQL Workbench, and what I mentioned before is this is the same analogous to what SQL Management Studio is. So if I actually, let me close this out, and you'll notice if I go to Start menu and go to MySQL, the SQL Workbench, that's how I bring it up. And if I double click on this, it prompts me for that root password. So while I'm in here, I'm actually going to just create my WordPress database. So I'm going to name it whatever database that so I'm going to click on So I'm going to click on this database here to create a new database. And I'm going to call it, by Microsoft convention, I'm going to use the company Contesso. So I'm just going to call it Contesso main website. And you shouldn't use any capital letters or spaces or underscores or anything like that, because MySQL by convention certainly it doesn't work too well with those special characters. And you might see it in some of these schemas, but it actually tries to escape it, or you have to actually escape that character when you type it in, so I wouldn't recommend it. So I just have here Contesso main website. So I'm going to click apply, and it's going to create the statements, the database DDL statements to create the website. So I'm just going to click apply again. So it executed the statements. Normally what I could have done is I could have just simply typed in create schema Contesso and just execute it, but as a layman it's probably easier to just use these menu options. So if I go here, you'll notice the tables are empty, which they should be. So I'm going to go up here to user privileges, and I'm going to have to enter in my password again for the root user, which is the admin user. And here I'm going to say create new user. So I'm going to click here, add new account, and I'm going to create an account for the WordPress admin. So I'm just gonna say Contesso admin, and this percent means that the user is allowed to log in from any machine. So normally you could restrict where the user logs in from. You could say localhost or whatever, but percent is the wildcard, meaning the user can log in from anywhere. So I'm gonna put in my simple password again, password 123. And now I am gonna have to give permissions. Well, let me click apply first here. So now I'm gonna have to give permissions to what database it can log in from. And I do that by saying add entry here. And I'm gonna click Contesso main website. And when I do that, I'm gonna check everything here because this is the admin. It allows the admin to add any object or do any object or do any type of command to that database. So I'm going to click apply. And so that sets up the database and the database user for when we install the WordPress later. So the WordPress objects and information is going to be stored in this database and created in this database. And the admin user, the admin database user that the WordPress website is going to log into is going to be this user. So I'm going to keep this up for now and go back to where I downloaded all the files. So I downloaded the WordPress files from this website here by clicking on this link. And let me unzip the files again. Alright, actually it looks like I have it in the wrong place, so I'm gonna copy it here and I'm gonna unzip these files that I downloaded again. And you'll notice now my WordPress files are in here. So I'm going to copy this whole directory. And I created a directory in my root called WordPress root. So I'm going to paste those WordPress files here. And I'm going to rename it to my Contesso main website. And I try to keep everything consistent because chances are in the future I might add more websites to this. So I'm going to copy and paste this location. Now it's time for me to go to IIS. So when I go to IIS here, I create a new website. And I'm going to call it Contesso main website. And paste in the path. Now this path is the path of where the files are, the PHP files are. And I am gonna call this site wpcontesso.com, and you could put in whatever URL that your site is gonna be. It might be www.yoursite.com. You know, depending on whatever domain name you have to set that up in your DNS and to point that website to this web server IP address. So that is all set. I'm going to click OK here. And you'll notice it does point to all of my files that are here. So the next thing I'm going to do is, because I named the website wpcontesso.com, I'm going to go into this directory, Windows, System32, drivers, etc, etc, and I'm going to edit the host file to make sure, because I'm doing a demo here and it's sort of like a development website. I put in my IP address of the current machine and then the domain that it's gonna be referenced. And if you don't, and if you're strictly gonna access it via your local host, simply type this in also. So that'll actually point to the file. I mean, when you type this in into the browser, it'll redirect it to that website. So now that I have that done, I am gonna go to my WordPress files. So you'll notice the directory, which is the directory where the IIS is pointing to, right here. And what I'm gonna do here is, let me go back to that directory. I'm going to copy this config sample, and what WordPress expects is it to be named wp-config.php. So I copied this and I renamed it to that, and now I'm ready to edit this. So I'm going to have to put my database names in here. So my database name, if I go back to my MySQL Workbench, is this. So I'm going to type that in here. Contesso main website. And the database username is actually Contesso admin. If you remember, that's the user I created. And the password is simply password123. And again, if you notice, what I'm configuring here is the database name, the username, and the password, and localhost. And you should change these salts. Just type in anything, because these are for the encryptions. So based on this key, it's going to encrypt everything using this as the key that creates a different hash for different for different kind of strings that you have, like passwords and all of that. And the reason why you want to change this is if anyone ever stole your password, they might not have the salt in order to decrypt it. But if you leave these all the same and someone else leaves it all the same, they might find a pattern to be able to decrypt it. Or they might be able to guess the password list a lot easier because of that. So definitely change all of these to something unique. I'm just going to leave this the way it is. So right now you're all set and you're ready to go to the website and actually install WordPress. So this is actually the last step here. We just did this, and let me just double check here. Whoops, let me just double check and make sure that I have this saved, and it looks like I do have this saved. Now if I go into IIS here, and now if I type in wp-contesso.com, it should forward me to this screen, which is the installation of your website. So if it doesn't come to this site, then something was configured wrong. Either your PHP wasn't installed, or your one of the steps you skipped, your database was configured wrong, or your database name was typed in wrong, or your password was typed in wrong. So this is the website admin. So I'm just going to call this WordPress WordPress admin, which is kind of a, you know what, I'm just gonna name it root. Oh, that's the website title. So I'm gonna say Contesso main Contesso website, and the username I'm just gonna say root, and this is gonna be the admin user. And again, I'm just gonna use password 123 because this is a demo. And code cowboyorg@gmail.com is my email. And now I'm going to click this magic button here, install WordPress. And it's going to connect to the database and install everything. Now it's done. Everything is nice and completed. So if I log in here, well, actually, if I go into the first page, you'll see this is WordPress, so it's been installed. Now if I log into the administration page using the previous username and password 123, now I can start customizing everything. But this you'll take a while to play around with, but for the most part, that is the complete end-to-end installation of WordPress. I do want to go back into this MySQL workbench, and you'll notice if I refresh the tables, now there's objects in here. You'll notice comments, links, your post. It's a very simple database, surprisingly. So that's WordPress for you. All right, that's really all I wanted to show you. Thank you for watching.